So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the background of some of my work, so that you get an idea of the types of structures of thinking, attitudes that are behind some of the things that I do. So to start with, I think about things from a kind of a cosmological level to begin with, because without this, trying to understand the basic three-dimensional human issues, is pretty much fruitless without an understanding of what's going on at the higher levels. So there is a lot of new science now to suggest that things are not what we thought they were traditionally in science, and a lot of the quantum physicists are having second thoughts about what reality is. The recent finding of the Higgs boson, the God particle, so it's all about energy and how we interact with that dynamic of being a human being in a physical body. But just to give you a background, first of all, there are many galaxies, and we're obviously on the Milky Way galaxy, and we have our planets. Literally, we are an outgrowth of our energetic system called the Milky Way, and we just ended up on the planet Earth. So the universe is in spiraling all the time. This is what keeps us stable. So the idea of everything spiraling is we're transitioning from one phase at this time, at 2013, to another. So we're moving into what's known as the fifth dimension, but which is fourth density. But I'll explain those a bit more later. So a lot of people are in transition. A lot of people are moving on from relationships, jobs, careers, moving to different places. So there's a lot of people feeling quite estranged from what they used to know. And the reason is because of this cosmic movement through the cycles that are happening and moving us up the levels of the spiral. There is a book out called The Synchronicity Key, which explains the spirals of history and how things are quite precisely managed in the spiral theme of things. So the universe is spinning. We are basically energetic beings, and we have chosen to come to planet Earth to experience this reality. And part of that bargain is to forget that we made that agreement before we incarnated. So if you imagine here, this person has just come from a meeting with the spiritual elements, and you've agreed your assignment and you're about to descend upon the earth. So as an energetic being, again, you can't prove this scientifically, but science is showing that what some of the mystics and the masters have said in the past are actually becoming backed up, depending on the measurement tools that we have. So we're beginning to measure more and more things, and eventually we'll be able to measure dark energy. We'll be able to grab some of that antimatter. But at the moment, I don't think we can, but it's there, otherwise we wouldn't exist. So, as a spiritual being, we've decided to come down a level and perceive things through our five senses. So our perception and how we code things brings us into the realm of free will and choice based on being in this physical reality. Obviously, before we came into this realm, we don't have free will because we've agreed the assignments that we're going to take. It's signed and sealed. But when we come down, we forget what those assignments are as part of the bargain, and we now have to go through those lessons as if we didn't know what they were, because we're forgetting, or we have forgotten. So as we go through life, we pick up cultures, and we experience life in all its colourfulness. And basically, just to simplify things, there are 7 life areas that generally cover all the bases for human endeavour. And these 7 contextual areas can be represented by what's known as the chakras, which are again our spinning vortices of energies which replicate the centre of galaxies and black holes. Again, there is new science to show that behaviours of the universe are reflecting something called the black hole principle by Mangius Mantelorton. And so anyway, the idea that we're a fractal holograph of the cosmic mirror is reflected in the fact that our physical bodies have these chakras. So I'm just going to quickly take you through these chakras to explain my take on things, putting all the ducks in the row as I mentioned to you earlier. So the first chakra is the base chakra and is represented by the colour red. They also have tunes, sort of notes on the tune spectrum that resonate to these different colours. I think F sharp is red, but there's a whole thing on that, which we don't have time to explain here. But generally, the familial area is part of that agreement when we come down, that we agree to become part of our chosen family. So, it's been said that we choose our bodies, we choose our parents, we choose our situations, we choose where on this earth we want to be born. So we come down through the spiral using the DNA structures that we've been given. And again, there's another lot of new science to show that we are not controlled by our DNA, and we can actually in fact change it by using our thoughts. So again, it's another quantum level, cosmic level thinking around DNA, but we're going to bring it down into the body so that we know exactly how it affects us and what we need to do to align all these energies, so that we're in the truth of our path, so the one that we agreed to help us stay on track with that. And that's what alignment and happiness is being able to feel that flow and make the decisions around it and trust and move forward. We don't always consciously know why we're doing things. If it feels good, follow your heart, that kind of blissful thinking. There is some truth in it based on being aligned with the sacred contract. Caroline Mace teaches sacred contract. I studied with her in 2003, and that's all about the chakras and the energy dynamics that goes on. So we need to align our energy in accordance with what we've agreed. Nobody likes to break a contract, and breaking a cosmic contract is, one of the most damaging things you can do, and is responsible for a lot of the depression, illnesses, misalignments that are going on at the moment. Misalignment of understanding of where we need to be and what we need to do. So, as we move on, the job of the physical body is to take responsibility for planning and programming the settings that keep us in balance. And obviously, as we're growing up through childhood, teenage years, adolescence, we don't know how to do that. So we get imbued with a load of stuff that is there to teach us lessons. And again, we agree to those lessons. But the attitude towards it as a teenager or a young person is you don't understand, you get angry with the world, end up taking drugs or drink or whatever, and, looking to external sources to make us happy. That person is going to make me happy, or I won't be happy until I'm a certain size, for example. So all these external things become the illusion. Shopping, cars, material things, lots of discussion about all of these things, but basically they're external things, and they exempt us from taking responsibility for what we need to do to honour those lessons that we agreed to learn when we came down here. And oftentimes people have awakenings at the age of 35 maybe, or later, or something happens, or they have an experience or epiphany where they understand everything about the universe in one go. But we get to that awakening through many paths, and each of us has our individual way of getting there. But the value system of these of the lessons that represent each of the chakras here, you can see it says I know, which is the spiritual one at the top. I see is the mental. I express is the vocal cords. I love is the heart center. I decide is the personal power center, the personal will. I want is the relationships, creativity side of things. And I am is the basic who you are when you came into this earth, your tribe, your chosen identity. But I'll go through some more of these. And the main thing is that we are able to emulate high quality states, and this is what NLP helps us to do, talking therapy, all the therapies. I think one of the most revered high quality states is that of the creative flow. And our creativity gets shut down when we have energies that are not resonating with that flow. And as you could see the DNA spiral coming down, we are in a state of flow as spiritual beings. That's our natural state. So being in a creative state and doing what you passionately believe in or feel really good when you do it is really our birthright to experience these wonderful flow states. But we get told that we have to get a job, or we have to stay in a marriage that we're not happy with, or whatever it is that kicks us off track from this flow. And then, of course, making decisions around what makes you happy becomes a thing to feel guilty about and shameful, or whatever it is. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody, there's no reason why you shouldn't be following your joy and, getting on with the job of doing the lessons that you agreed to do. So this energy flow image here shows how it's always in flux, it's a dance, and we have to be in touch with that, which means being aware of our inner state at all times. So the next one is the physical being, the physical chakra, which is a representation of how we structure our relationships, our environment, the things we have around us, the cars, the houses, and our preferences. So there's structure everywhere, social structures, mental structures, physical structures. So anything physical, anything concrete, anything you can touch or measure is a representation of the physical matter manifestation of being a human. And again, there's a whole load of science around how that comes to be, how spiritual energy forms into physical energy. So there's the physical structure of the body. Again, the body holds the responsibility for carrying out these lessons. And the more aligned we are, the better we're able to feel that energy flowing through. A lot of the symptoms of being out of alignment is low energy, apathy, no motivation, those kinds of things. So people do yoga, they go for walks, they might do exercise, they may go on a vegan diet, whatever it takes to get them back into their own energy flow. And there are also neural networks. These are the mechanisms through which we communicate, the mechanisms by which processes get processed in the body, things that we can control and things that are going on without our conscious awareness. So those are the structural elements. And then we go to use our physical body to connect with our social agreements and bonds. So we're born into structures, which we know is culture. And here's an image of how a society may be structured. It's just one of many. But here you can see you've got the top hierarchy of government, and then the church and the military, and then the middle class, or whatever, the upper echelons of richness. And then you have the workers who then earn the money to circulate the money for economic reasons, which I'm not an economist, so I don't really know how to explain that. But anyway, you see what I mean. There's a social structure, and within that social structure we learn to communicate at different levels with different social bonds and agreements that we make. So, for example, marriage is one social agreement. It allows certain events to happen between those two people, such as having a family, running a business, maybe if it's a business partner, becoming a teacher, allows student learnings to happen. So we have these very specific now, getting very specific about the relationships we develop and how we respond to them energetically. And again, the way we communicate with others and through our perception, interpretation and meaning is the point at which communication breakdowns can cause problems between us and other people, and how we internally experience that breakdown. So one of the things is to learn how to use your mind and the tools that we're going to be learning in how to transcend those lower density thought patterns, and to be able to just do nothing in some cases. Just, might be just as simple as just breathing and telling yourself everything's okay. Anything to get you out of that low density vibration, because that's not in alignment with where you're going. The other person may not know that because they're not doing any courses or they're not into personal development, but the person that is aware of it and chooses to be aware of it and can do so through these methods. So then we now have the vocational chakra, which is all about doing what you love, what the flow is. The heart is the centre of the seat of the soul, really. It is really the CEO of the body. It is the one that takes the orders from the higher spiritual realm, and it pulses and it gives us clues through being peaceful and feeling calm and happy. So when the heart is being honoured for what it knows it needs to do, based on the sacred contract that you agreed to sign up to, when it's not being honoured, that's when people get depressed, angry, demotivated, and all those human conditions that need healing occur through the heart not being honoured. So vocational, you can earn money doing what you love, and a lot of lucky people that do that are in sort of careers and occupations that allow them to do what they love, and they don't see it as work, but they see it as a vocation. So the next one is financial, and this is about knowing your own worth and expressing yourself, standing up for your worth, and knowing that you're just as special as anybody else. Expressing your own truth comes into that, communicating your truth. So when you see people talking about their passions, their throat chakra, because this is in the throat area, their throat chakra is open and expressed, whereas shy people, it's very sort of closed down. They don't talk much because they're afraid to express themselves through whatever reason, whatever cultural conditioning they've taken on board. So beginning to understand that the throat area, the fifth chakra, which is the blue one, which I pointed there, is about energy exchange of value, self-value, self-worth. And again, that kind of translates into an exchange of money for services, or, so there is a value aspect to the communication side of who you are and what you believe you're worth in this community. And then we have the mental side of things, which is the executive of the body. And again, the heart is the CEO, and it is the mental manager's side of the job, i.e. the mind. This is where most of the literature talks about change and personal development. It's all focused on the brain at the moment and the mind, which is okay because it's a start. But really, what's missing in the literature, or a lot of the accepted literature, is that the heart is the powerful force here, not the brain. The brain's job is to put in place the requests of the heart. So it makes decisions, it plans based on the expression of that need through the throat chakra. So it's been given its orders, and then the brain then makes a plan using such tools as NLP and changing how you think and changing your internal dialogue, talk therapy. All those things can be used to help the brain plan its workload and submit that work in whatever form is decided is best. But anyway, the main thing is it makes a decision based on how it's come to that choice. And that's the thing, is how does the mind take the choice? If the mind or the brain is not listening to the heart, it literally can go on for ages like that without anybody noticing. But eventually things will break down because that is not the law that was set down. So the spiritual aspect of things is that we are destined to move up the spiral, and if the brain is not cooperating, then the body will break down and all sorts of health issues happen. This is why I say once you get your alignment strategies mastered, your health kind of comes naturally, because you're in a more relaxed state, the blood flows better, you feel happier, the hormones are running better, everything works better when you're happy and in alignment. So, and then we come to the spiritual aspect, which is basically the director. It is the one that directs the heart because it is closer to the pivot point of being physical and spiritual being. It is the mediator of physical matter and spiritual realms of non-matter. So it is the director, and again, its job is to help us to fulfill these contracts that we set out to achieve. And within that, we use our conscious will. This is where we become conscious being. We make decisions. We can either choose the truth, the path of least resistance, and you can see here the spiral of the chakras in a different perspective here. Or we can choose the hard way, a bit like the naughty child or the defiant manager or whatever. Somebody who doesn't want to follow the flow of things is choosing the hard path. So this is where we learn our lessons along the way. Each of these ones, we can learn lessons in all of these areas. And as we're speaking about these different areas, these are the areas that we need to balance and get masterful at. And this is what's going to take the time. This is what's going to take the experimental efforts. And this is where, some monks, they go and meditate on a mountain for 10 years to get clarity. But we don't have time for that in this in the environments that we live in. We have to earn money, deal with mobile phone salespeople, so we have to be more proactive in how we change those dynamics within us, and that's the skill. That's when you become a master, to be able to adopt a Zen-like position much more deliberately and more timely and efficiently than it would do to take 10 years about it. So, and as I mentioned, the contemplation aspects, I think it's very good, and I think it's an absolutely essential thing to put time aside for contemplation, particularly when learning we're learning how to create a new identity, definitely need to go out of the realm of the mind and the brain into the unconscious. So lots of, trancey things, hypnosis, contemplation, sitting, maybe going for a walk in the woods and thinking and mulling things over. Lots of that will be happening. It's not something you can rush, but you can decide how much time you want to commit to this new you developing. Some people like to keep journals. Some people like to do vision boards. Whatever it is you do, there's a million tools out there you can use. But the idea is to consciously think about all these areas in a way that you end up being happy with. So rather than just letting life and the cultural hypnosis dictate to you what it is you should be doing, this is your time to take control of your own emotions, develop your own thoughts, design your own destiny and your identity, and begin to start taking charge of all these areas so that you don't get swept along with the masses. So a lot of people decide to stop watching the news, for example, because it's all fear-mongering and fear-based paradigm. So it would be good to have, perhaps a break from the news and the newspapers for a couple of weeks, just so that you get back to your own person, find out who you are, especially if you've had a lot of things going on in the last couple of years. Then, you really need to give yourself time to find out who you are again. And at the age that you mentioned, it is a scary time, but it's also a very exciting time. And also time to not regret anything, but see everything as everything happened because it was meant to. And of course, you could have made decisions earlier, but you make decisions when it's time to make decisions. So if you've ever wanted to do a project that hasn't happened, it's because the timing wasn't right. And then the minute you let it go, all of a sudden, all the opportunities for that project to move on start coming in, and you think, what was all that about? All that worrying and pushing and forcing to no avail, and yet the easiest path was to just let it go, and then all of a sudden it comes in. So that's how the universe works. It's trusting in that ability to stay in your flow and your joy, which is counterintuitive to what everybody else is doing around you. Everybody else is stressing, talking about negative things, and they're doing it to themselves, but they're not aware of it. But the more you become aware of it, the more you start noticing it, and the more you start saying, I'm not like that. I can choose to be another way. So, in contemplating all these areas, you begin to become a master at orchestrating these energy centers, chakras and energies, by literally you can actually feel them in your body, and these are the liberators of the body. When you align them in the moment with the tools I'm going to teach you, and you begin to become a really good conductor of knowing where you want to be, the highest state, emulation, and then noticing when you're off that state and having the tools to get back into that lovely flow with the universal energies there. So once you've made the choice that yes, this is my highest being at the moment, because once you get to one level, there's always another level, but it's better to go to the next level rather than staying in the same old level, or worse still, going down a level. And making a choice and saying, yes, I've decided I want to have this configuration, this is my programming, this is what I'm happy with in these areas. And not all of them are activated. Not all of them are prioritised all at the same time. So it might be relationships 1 minute, might be career the next. Once you've got your career, you might be, okay, what do I need to do for creativity? So depending on where you are, allowing that flow to, being aware of which areas you're working on and where you're applying these skills, because these skills can be applied to all the areas. We're not just working on physical well-being areas or relationship. You can apply all these areas, all these skills to different areas. It's just a case of which areas you want to, which areas you want to develop at that time. So, making a choice is your choice, and how you discern, how you come to that choice is through testing and experimenting, a bit like being, let's say, in a buffet, and you try different foods or different wines, and you decide which ones you like and which ones you don't. So again, it's the same with experiences you want to have, and emulating the states that, or modelling states from people that you perceive as being who you'd like to be like. What is it they're doing that you would like to have? And so there is lots of opportunities to have resources out there that you can use, and you already have your own that you've developed that other people would like. But when you're in a state of needing help, sometimes you don't recognise your own brilliance or your own qualities. Maybe you do. But what I'm saying is there are people out there that are giving you clues as to, hey, you could have this or you could have that. I do this really well. And I don't know if you've ever been near people that you pick up their vibes, so and you immediately take a like to them, and there's nothing that doesn't resonate with you. And so again, that's an energy vibe. People give off an energy based on how they're configured. There are some people you want to be around, there are some people you don't want to be around. And you know why? That's because there's an energy going on within them, in their chakras, their vortices of energy. And again, they've either not been aware of how to change it, or they know how to change it, but they just can't remember. They haven't remembered to do it. I get that with a lot of people who've learned NLP. They've done all the courses and whatever, but when you actually talk to them, they haven't actually applied it themselves. And that's not to say that they're bad people. It's just that they haven't been aware of it. And so they might become aware of it later through an insight or whatever. But mostly we notice it because we're an objective person to them, so we can see it. And the other thing is also, when people say they've done personal development, they make themselves targets for being perfect. But, they're never perfect. Nobody's perfect. And everybody learns their lesson in their own time. And nobody is to be judged. And that's the good thing about having that perspective, is that if you don't judge anybody, you're not putting any pressure on yourself to be perfect. So then once you've made your choice, your decision from all the options, you either decide if it's a wrong one or a right one based on previous experiments, or maybe you've made a little bit of decision that was a bit off and you need to adjust it. So whatever experience in life, you make the decision, you go along, and you decide whether it was a good decision or a bad decision. If you've ever bought anything and you know whether you made a good decision or not, if it's not a good decision, you take it back because something was wrong, or If it was a good decision, you probably would buy another one. So you know how to determine, once you've made a choice, whether it's good or bad, based on your experience of interacting with that decision. And then you have the future, based on getting these energies and these aspects right through trial and error, testing and whatever. You begin to become a master at your own energy field. And that is something when you become personally empowered, because you trust in your own decisions, because you've tested them, you've tried them out, and if you didn't go with the intuitive flow, normally it doesn't turn out right. So you become to develop, you start to develop faith in your own ability to transcend things. You start to trust things and go against counterintuitive ideas of society with much more confidence. But until you develop that confidence, it can be very easy for friends and family to say to you, don't do that, you're mad. But really inside you know that it's the right decision. But until you honour those decisions and realise that you made a good decision, more and more of the time, and the ratio of good decisions to bad decisions gets better, then you start to develop trust and belief, self-belief in your own decisions. A lot of people don't have that. But for those that do, the future is just a case of putting these things into practice, experimenting with them, being creative with them, and going forward with them, and actually just doing it. A lot of what stops people from just doing things is they either don't believe that everything is energy. So they might listen to a hypnosis tape once, say, it hasn't worked. But they haven't really listened to it. I recently listened to a spiritual album that I've been listening to for over 10 years, but today, or yesterday, I listened to it. The words of this song that I've been listening to for years actually had a different meaning, a much deeper meaning when I listened to them. So what you're hearing with your ears, in one state, the deeper you go, the deeper lessons begin to reveal themselves. So the spiritual journey and this identity creation is kind of never ending, which is a good thing, because it's going to give you, lots of opportunities to develop, shine, learn, and never really get bored with life. When people stop learning and developing, that's when they become depressed and see no point in doing anything. So these things that you're going to be learning are going to be giving you tools to be able to transition up the spiral continuously, and the more you use them, the more you learn about them, and the more you read about the background of them, the more masterful you're going to get, and that's when happiness becomes attainable. And happiness is not an end event, it's a continuing process. And the challenge is, well, not the challenge, but the joy is in finding things that you want, having the tools to help you get there, planning the strategy, having belief that it's going to happen, and that basically is the formula. So that's what we're going to be learning. I'm going to send you this piece of recording, which I'm using something called Shadow Puppet, and I hope you find it useful. It's just a background to what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to ask you the session will be that I want you to tell me what's on your mind. So we're going to give you lots of opportunity to just tell me everything, just get everything off your chest. I will record it, if you don't mind, because I will need to refer back to it. And then I shall send you more of these little tutorials as we go along. And we can also set up times to have the follow-up meeting after I've gone through your the first session with you, reviewing things like what's holding you back, what you want to achieve. So this is your opportunity to tell me everything you need to tell me, and I will have it recorded, and then we'll take it from there. So I will send this to you now. Hopefully you can listen to it before our session. So I shall do that. I'm signing off now. Thank you.